kind of activate them to listen from this first, and then we link that to the technological design later. Am I answering your questions?
So
but the teachers later, they don't need to follow our step that we suggest them. They can adapt it later up to their student level. They don't need to start with listening. They may start with the task first, according to the step that we plan. But for a very good student, you can introduce listening to them first.
So what you're saying is you're offering teachers a choice.
Right.
It's exactly one of the points I want to make in the teacher's notes at the end, is actually offering choices. I think that's really terrific. Then individual teachers can make individual decisions based on what kind of model they like, and also on what they think is suitable for their students. I'm teasing you, sorry.
Are you sure?
Not really, no. So, does anyone want to say anything more about that? So let's look at this then. I think we sort of already answered this point. What kinds of tasks can be used for contextualization or engagement?
Because even for big as well, what he has to do is he has to plan for the argumentative essay, right? But he plans to use some YouTube. Can you talk about your work?
She wants you to say something.
Yes, it's an opinion task, and then in the introduction part, I plan to provide a set of video, and then these for the teacher to select which one they feel comfortable to choose.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
Offering choices to teachers and students, both, is I think a really good idea. Now, the next point here about the study stage is this. Whenever you put the study stage, if you have it, ESA or EAS, it can be done deductively. You can teach a language point deductively, where the teacher explains. Or you could teach it inductively, where you give the students something to think about, maybe a paragraph or something to listen to on a tape or a model conversation, and then the teacher can elicit what the students might notice from that language input.
So Jonathan, I think that this one, the teacher's questions are very important as a guideline to them to think.
So in that case, the teacher's notes could have suggestions for how to elicit. Is that what you're suggesting?
Some kinds of questions.
Yeah, we tend to always write questions to for the students to answer rather than questions for ourselves.
You mean in teacher's notes?
Yeah.
Can you say more about that?
I'm still thinking about it. Maybe, fitting with what you're saying about giving teachers choices, maybe it should be more about questions for us.
So you're not talking about a list of questions in the teacher's notes and the teachers would read
so
it
it's
up.
not kind of filling blank, that there's a given answer that the students have to provide. But more just things that will get them to notice.
Yeah, I mean, you could, for example, if you were trying to reteach third person singular, you know, that third person S. It's such a pain in English. Why do we have third person S? But what you could do, if instead of just teaching it in a PPP way, you could show students some very short piece of text or a conversation or something on a tape and say, what do you notice about the verbs? And if they don't say anything, what do you notice about the verb go? The students can say, oh well, here it says go and here it says goes. And then the teacher can say, okay, well when do we use goes, when do we use go? It's just a very simple example, maybe too simple for our students. But that's how the teacher could I think, do it more inductively through elicitation. Rather than just presenting the same old grammar points year after year when the students have had them before. I think very often we present old material, and what we need to be doing when we're recycling, we need to make the students draw more on their previous knowledge, on their existing partial knowledge maybe, Maybe they know there's something about S with verbs, but they don't know exactly what it is. So if you provide some kind of text, and then say, notice the verbs, what do you notice? You could actually try and get the students to tell you what the rule is, rather than...
But are you trying to get them to draw on their previous experience, or are you trying to get them to think something new?
Aren't they connected?
No, I've got a storehouse of previous information. What do you know about the verb conjugation? Oh, okay, go, went, or whatever it is, okay?
That's completely decontextualized.
But if you have prompts in the teacher's note instead of questions, if you have prompts, it limits you. I mean, if you have questions, it limits you. Because then you think, okay, now I'm going to ask this question of these students. But if you just have prompts, then you can be more creative.
Can you give an example?
For example, say I'm talking about, well, thanks for putting me on the spot of the example part. But
Well, examples often clarify.
yes. Well, what I do with some of my students is, I don't tell them what we're talking about. I set up a scenario where they're describing it. And then I listen from that until I reach my target. If I want them to think about environment, I don't start by asking about environment. I start by asking them about where they live and how do they feel and what is related to, what's good and bad about it. Can they come up with a term that describes it? And it takes a little bit of work, but they do arrive at my target.
So you're guiding them through a series of questions to the context you want.
Yes, in the process, they're thinking about it. And I would like them to think now, instead of just telling them, here's the environment, does anybody know the meaning of it? That's useless.
Well, I'm entirely agreeing with
Because
you.
I'm not a dictionary standing up there.
I entirely agree with you. In getting the students to think, I think you're achieving a lot.
And you know what, let me give credit. I've only been here one semester, but I'm going to be very candid with you. The Thai students that I've taught so far are very intelligent. You know how I know? They know all the answers in Thai, just can't explain themselves in English. The problem is how we teach English. It's not that they are stupid. I'm sorry I'm being a little bit abrupt about it, but I'm telling you, this is the problem I find. It may not be the same thing that you know, but this is what I discovered. They're very intelligent. They can discuss among each other all the problems, okay? They know what they're talking about. They get very frustrated, and I look at them and they say, I know this. I said, yes, you do. So sometimes I tell them. Why? Because there comes a time when you just have to give them a little push. Because then they can go on to the main topic that I want to get to. But if I stop them at every place, and I guess this is where deductive and inductive is blending. But, you know, I'm very impressed with the students so far. And I think the fault lies with us and not with them. But I might be preaching to the choir. Anyway, we'll make a point.
So, suggestions for the study phase: a shift from a deductive to an inductive approach students' proficiency advances. That's personally one of the main things I want to say today. An evolution, a shift. I'm not saying you just switch from one to the other, or you're always one or the other. I think you need both, but I think you need to shift towards a more inductive approach.